Identity twisting the world in the wall. People forgot what the heartbeat is for. Borders get built when the fear hits the core. Revolution demands that we open the door. History wrote us and tries to survive. Now those same try push us into divide. Culture and creed turn to stubborn pride. We choke on the truth that we're all on one side. Refugees walking through politics flame. Everyone looking for someone to blame. Good people struggle while villains get fame. Everything shifting but never the same. Germany balancing morals with fear. Future is present but unclear this year. Justice is quiet, the loudness is near. We shout for belonging when nobody here. Syria'S brilliance trapped under the dust. Workers and doctors in cardboard and rust. All of their futures misplaced in the rush. Talent gets wasted when system don't trust. Locals afraid of their wages and life. Thinking migration is stealing their slice. Fear of the new turns the warm into ice. Preaching protection becomes sacrifice. Islam in the west in a stare full of dread. Rigidity battling inside of each head. Narratives clashing on who should be led. Polarization keeps justice unfair. Humans demanding the right to exist. Clutching identity tight in the fist. Prejudice boiling whenever it's missed. Anger and headlines forever persist. Translation devices can flatten the tongue, but language was never where hatred was sprung. Tribal mentality deep in the lung. Exhale suspicion on old and the young. Everyone claiming that God is the one. Everyone thinking the world must be one. Faith becomes weapon when logic is shunned. Wars of belief leave the hope overrun. Capital gains using fear like a tool. Politics feeding division at school. History repeating, we fail to refuel. Wisdom is quiet but panic is cruel. Immigrants grinding, just trying to rise. Systemic delays put a lock on the prize. Paperwork judging the worth of their lives. Bureaucracy killing the part to survive. We want a future where borders dissolve. Problems get tackled for humans involved. Every identity needing resolve. But pride is a puzzle nobody will solve. Hospitals crowded, the workers depleted. Blaming newcomers for structures unseated. Government stall while compassion gets cheated. Integration delayed and the cycle repeated. Wages get pushed to collapse in the base. Corporates abusing the weakest in place. Locals and migrants both losing the race. Greed is the rival the world has to face. Culture protection becomes an excuse. Media milking the panic for views. People with new ones get lost in the news. Fear is the anchor that nobody choose. We need a model where justice is shared. Everyone's safe and everyone cares. Stop reinforcing the walls that we bear. Stop acting threatened by people who care. Rigid identity, sharpen the blade. Cutting connection in every brigade. Power is worshipped and kindness betrayed. Echoes of empire refusing to fade. Humans evolving but dragging the past. Progress will win but the fight's never fast. Old ideologies cling to the last. Every new sunrise defeats the forecast. Identity compass